I'm going to take some time off. Now that this video is uploaded, I'm not coming back until I finish the entire series of Karl Ove Knausgaard's My Struggle. Because I adore a reading project. Absolutely love them. I think they're stellar. A project to me shouldn't be short term, and it should push you. Like, it should really take you to like a level where you're a little bit uncomfortable, or you're daunted by it and you want to push through it. You actually need to see it to completion. And this is what my struggle with My Struggle is going to be. I know absolutely nothing in regards to Knausgaard, apart from some people call him the Norwegian Proust. Some people just absolutely hate him. And when an author hits a boundary like that, where it's either all or nothing, I love it. I'm all for a read like that. He's written a lot more than his autobiographical fiction, memoir-esque. Again, I don't really know what it is, but he's written more than My Struggle. But this series catapulted him to stardom, to fame. He's a name that most people have heard of. My Struggle consists of 6 books, and the page length of all of it combined is 3,770. I've googled the word count and it says there's 1,371,255 words. That's a lot. Knausgaard's series is nearly equivalent to 20 The Bell Jars, 6 Crime and Punishments, and 2 and a bit Vikram Seth, The Suitable Bad Boys. This is a lot of words. It's a lot of words, it's a lot of pages, and 6 books, that's a heck of a lot of money. So I did what every influencer would do. I emailed the publisher. We've now established that's a lot of words. It's a lot of pages, but it's 6 books, and that, foremost, is a lot of money. So I did what every single bookish influencer would do. God, I hate that I even call myself that. I emailed the publisher. Yay! Penguin Random House. And Penguin Random House said, quite swiftly, "Thank you for your email. I'm afraid that review copies aren't available this far post-publication." Oh no, you might be thinking, but not me, because I'm a man who wants to save 60 quid. So I responded with, oh, we need to make them confidential. Let's go for the name Longestine Jambalaya. I responded with, "Hi, Longestine Jambalaya. I had a sneaky suspicion this might be the case. Is there anything else we can do? Oh, come on, Longestine Jambalaya, help a brother out." And I gotta give it to Longestine. They came back. I put the ball in their court and she just went, "Nope. Hi, Kieran. I'm not sure. Is there anything you have in mind?" No! That's how you respond to an email, people. Just mate, you tell me the answer you want. Some people might give up, but I'm having way too much fun with this, so I've gone, at the moment, the only thing I can think of is having a key to the vintage vault seeking for forgotten copies. However, I doubt they would be there, and I doubt there's a vault. I've not had a response to that. I used to work in an email department, and it was very much like a laissez-faire sort of vibe of, hey, you know what, send wherever you want, as long as you deal with the request. So if it's a little bit silly, you can be a little bit silly back. And probably one of my favourites was someone was complaining, well, not complaining, they were more confused to, in a donut, how do we used to get the hole out of the donut, and what would then happen to the donut bites? Would we package them up? And I just responded being oh no, we have a narwhal department, and they use the tusks to spear the holes, so there's no wasted. And they came back being this is really silly, and my response back was, for baby narwhals, we trade them up on polos. Boom! I didn't really answer their question, but they did tell me that their daughter thought it was hilarious. The email thread's gone completely dead, but if Longestine Jambalaya does respond, I will update you. Rather than having a laugh, I could do what some book influencers do, and they go straight over on Instagram and go, oh, I couldn't get my free copies. I was not allowed my review copies. And I work so hard reading books and post them online, and I'm doing a lot of marketing. Shut up. Just do what most people do, and what I did. I went to Waterstones. I took a journey out of my day, and I went to Waterstones. Stop whinging. God damn it. How up yourself do you have to be like, actually, all the hard work I do, you're reading a book, like loads of people read books and have to bloody pay for them. Shut up. What are you talking about? Go to buy the damn book. Oh, hey, you know what? There's this thing called a library. Ask them to get a book in. Stop whinging online. Stop it. So yeah, I went to Waterstones like every normal person would bloody do. Shut up, honestly. People like this wind me right up. I go to Cardiff Waterstones and I go to the fiction section. It's all alphabetical by last name. I go to K and oh no, it's not there. There's a visible gap of where this would be. Your boy had only rung up the day before and asked him to reserve it. Woo! There's a little receipt there. How fun. And we have, people, the first 2 books of Knausgaard. How fun. The other 4, I rung up my library. And, oh, do you know what? I always hate on my library, but there's one guy, and I think his name's Chris in Pontyclean. Chris in Pontyclean, you deserve a raise. Before I emailed the publisher, I gave him a ring and was like, hey, like, do you have any of these copies available? And he was like, not in South Wales, like, not at all. I think the only one was The End. It's the last one in the series, so both of us agreed probably shouldn't start off with that one. But on the 7th of May, he gives me a ring and goes, I've rung every single library I could possibly, like, contact. I've got them for you. I've got the entire 6. And they come into you now. However, I had, at that time, just come off the phone to Waterstones. So I've purchased these 2, but we'll have the other 4 from the library because it's free. So yeah, it was a struggle to get my struggle, but by using means that most average Joes do, I used a library and a bookshop, we got the books. But you know what, we're here. Let's talk about why I'm calling this My Struggle with My Struggle. I have to give full credit to the person who kind of like inspired this, which is Rebecca from Rebecca Eats Books. I will link her down below. Her husband loves Knausgaard and believes he's an absolute literary genius. Rebecca is not too convinced on that. She recently read Spring. I'll leave that video down below. Check it out. She's not really convinced. We have a Instagram group. I put on there, hey, you should do a series called My Struggle with My Struggle. And I was ruminating on a few days. I was like, I've always wanted to read Knausgaard. Maybe I should just use that idea. Don't worry, I haven't stolen that idea, because I also recommended to Rebecca she uses Yale or Fail, and I want to see that. I'm sat there thinking, like, is this something I should embark on? I put it on my Instagram, and a lot of people said, yes. I had a few DMs roll through being like, yes, like, is this worth my time? Is he a good writer? Is he as great as everyone says he is? And like, are these standalones? Like, these are like questions that people ask, and something that in this series I want to discuss and give advice on. My heart did sink, however, when Rick McDonald, how dare you, commented on the should I do this, be like, hey, call it My Struggle with My Struggle, lol. I had to just respond with, you literally have my series titles. I thought I was so cool coming up with that. But Rick came back because flattery will get you everywhere. Great minds and all that. I gave this particular comment a half because, you know, play the field. On that note, this is the last you're going to see of me until I've read all of Knausgaard's My Struggle. Who knows how long this is going to take? It could be 2 months. It could be like 8. These are the only books I will be reading during this time. I'm going to just get into Knausgaard's head, like, completely, so you don't have to. Or maybe so you do have to. Maybe I'll be like, wow, this is amazing. If you do want to chat with me, I'll always be on Instagram, but I'm probably most chatty on my Discord. Links to both are down below, as always. And I'll see you at some point. Probably a broken man.
The sky is overcast, the grey-green swell heavy but calm as though possessing a different temperament from the choppy, white-flecked waves that burst forth here and there. I'm sitting alone watching. It is sometime in spring, I suppose, for my father is working in the garden. I stare at the surface of the sea without listening to what the reporter says, and suddenly the outline of a face emerges. I don't know how long it stays there, a few seconds perhaps, but long enough for it to have a huge impact on me. The moment the face disappears, I get up to find someone I can tell. My mother is on the evening shift, my brother's playing football, and the other children on our patch won't listen. So it has to be my dad, I think. And I hurry down the stairs, jump into shoes, thread my arms through the sleeves of my jacket, open the door, and run around the house. We're not allowed to run in the garden, so just before I enter his line of vision, I slow down and start walking.
Evening, it has been 4 days since my announcement video, and I have finally read A Death in the Family by Karl Ove Knausgaard, the first installment, you can see it from the number 1 there, people, of his My Struggle series, of which I am going to read all 6. I've given up my entire life to just reading Knausgaard. In regards to the series, we're going to play it a little bit differently. Knausgaard is known for being honest, for stripping everything back, to really putting himself on the line here. And I want in these reviews for me to take a bit of a different tack, to move down that element, to kind of get Knausgaardian, if I can call it that. Now, my first thing about Knausgaard, I've noticed that there are 2 groups of people when it comes to this author. They are that people think that he is great, he's phenomenal, he's a rock star of literature. And by the way, if you've read the first book and you see how he was being a rock star, or you get the other people who don't like Knausgaard. They don't like the fact that he has pretty much sold out his family, sold out his children, sold out his wife for the purpose of manufacturing art, for manufacturing literature, for manufacturing a book. They don't like the objectification of women. They don't like the fact that he just referenced how much he wants to masturbate on pages. All of that, they're like, they ain't interested. So you have this dichotomy going on here. Now, people, I've done some research. I mean, it's not peer-reviewed and it's not going to turn up in a Yale University seminar, but I've spoken to enough people to give you this generalization. Generally, the people who like Knausgaard have read Knausgaard. They've read his books. They've seen what Knausgaard has to offer, and they like it. You know what's going to happen when we move over to this group of people, don't we? This happens with loads of books, this happens with loads of authors. You shouldn't really be surprised at this, that people just like saying these things. Generally, people who don't like Knausgaard ain't read the guy. They've not even opened a book. They've not even touched it. I don't like that. I don't like people who say, I don't like this person, and it's all like secondhand information. Ain't interested. They go, nah, secondhand information should not be the primary focus of me making up my decision on something or someone or some books or anything. I want to read it. I want to engage with it. I'll make my own damn mind up if I like it or not. So, we're all adults here, and hey, you know what? If you're under 18, you don't have to be peer pressured by people to say something that you think is right. It's okay to just turn around and be like, you know, I actually don't know anything about this. I don't have an opinion. It's quite okay to say that. I say it quite often. Karl Ove Knausgaard, for those who do not know, wrote My Struggle, a series comprised of 6 books. It's over 1 million words. And it has 3,000 plus pages, almost as tall as the 6'2", 3. I mean, the guy's lanky Norwegian author. It's very truthful, it's very honest, he bears all, and there's no filter on this book. Whatever he thought during the time, he writes it, even if it feels wrong, even if it feels like morally ambiguous, even if it just feels like heartless. Knausgaard just like bears it all on the line. Before I decided to commit myself to read the entire series, I looked at some reviews, and what was interesting is that, firstly, people don't like Knausgaard because he's a bit of an arsehole. And I'll be honest, I think Knausgaard knows that he is. Knausgaard, despite what he writes, understands that he's an arse. He says that he doesn't like a girl in his school because she can't pronounce her R's, while equally he can't pronounce his R's. It's very self-aware. He knows what he's doing. The criticism that he's an arse doesn't feel like a criticism when the guy knows that he is. Based on this book alone, because I haven't read the other books by the time of this recording, he hasn't misled me once. The guy's completely honest in regards to what he's doing, and he's fully aware on his reflections and how idiotic something sounds when he's talking about him as a teenager versus him as an adult. He's fully aware. That criticism falls on his face when Knausgaard kind of meets you halfway. You can't turn around and be like, you're a bad guy, where he's like in the street going, yeah, I know. Like, I'm telling you these things. It's like meeting up in a seedy alleyway with a drug dealer and your criticism is that he sells drugs. Like, yes. Everyone knows. You wouldn't want Greta Thunberg's UN speech and your criticism being that she focuses too much on climate change. You wouldn't read the foundational Welsh myths that are found in the Mabinogion and your criticism being that you struggled with the names. They're Welsh. The second criticism that made me absolutely cackle with delight every time I saw it were that people were upset with the spoiler that Knausgaard's dad dies. It's called A Death in the Family. Like, who were you expecting? Knausgaard's mum never makes an appearance. She's an absolute ghost. His brother's at his side all the time, and his father slowly drinks his way to death, and his family just let him do it. Who else was it going to be? Nevertheless, we start this book with wee little Knausgaard going out into the garden to meet his father, saying that he saw a face in the ocean. Being broadcasted and reported on the news is a disaster at sea, and everyone thinks the face that Karl Ove Knausgaard sees is a dead body. Knausgaard said that he didn't see a dead body, didn't see a human face. Instead, he saw within the waves a face. His father, who gives very little feelings toward Knausgaard, mocks him. And later on within the book, Knausgaard's going up to bed and tells his parents, like, oh, look out for the face in the sea, like if it's being reported on the news. And Knausgaard can hear his father laughing when it doesn't happen.
What book are you reading now?
Knausgaard, Death in the Family.
Huh?
Knausgaard, Death in the Family.
Right.
It's about his dad who dies.
Oh, true story?
Yeah.
All right.
Wonder how much he hates him.
No, that's not good.
No. It's even upset the baby.
This sets the precedence for Knausgaard's relationships, not just in his familial relationships, but he is a teenager, and as we see him moving into adolescence, he wants to explore himself, he wants to explore his feelings, he wants to explore sex. But still, like his father, there is some removal of feeling, and now that Knausgaard's looking back onto his life, I feel within the series he's trying to plot out the gaps for us. He's trying to explain what was going on in his head during this time and trying to rationalize it, but not rationalize it from his older, wiser self, but from the perspective of where he was. And being a spunk-filled teenager, sometimes that's all he can think about. On top of this, add that he finds alcohol, and his friends mock him. They call him Garfield because he gets so blackout drunk one time that they're watching a Garfield cartoon, and Knausgaard just keeps shouting, I am Garfield, until he just crashes there and then. He's called Garfield for a while, but he knows that he can't remember anything about that. It's all secondhand information. What's interesting about the structure of this novel is that part one deals with Knausgaard finding alcohol and enjoying alcohol, and in part two we have Knausgaard's father living on alcohol and using alcohol as a means to survive, and his survival technique leads to his death. Taking it back to the beginning, but before where the story starts, we have these thoughts about why is a dead body so repulsive? Why is there a need to cover up the body? Is it an act of respect? Or is it an act of repulsion, the fact that we don't want to see the face, we don't want to understand that moment, that stillness, what had life now is absent. This first section, in regards to how Knausgaard tries to tackle what is death and how do we react, how do we engage with death, really interesting stuff. Ricocheted right to the end, where Knausgaard spends the final moments with his father just staring at this face, and he's not so much trying to read expression, he's just trying to read the face, he says, as if he's trying to understand who his father is, not what his father is trying to say, how his father feels, just who his father is. It's a striking moment. And within my struggle, we have these beautiful moments kind of wrapped within these kind of baffling like sequences. So when Knausgaard gets the call to say that his father dies, the first thing he could think of is having a wank. And you're there going, right, okay, right, that's what you want to tell me as the reader. Again, you can see but the first criticism that I mentioned, people go to read into these moments what they want, and I have no doubt, I don't even know if this exists, but there's no doubt that someone's probably going to make the case that upon real death, that the reason why Knausgaard thinks about masturbation is because of Le Petit Mort, where, you know, the orgasm is the closest thing to death, and that Knausgaard's trying to understand. You know, really, I don't think Knausgaard's thinking like this. I think Knausgaard is just really peeling back all sort of filter that he's got. That's basically what this book is. I don't think it's trying to be like unashamedly like shocking at times. I don't think it's trying to be quirky or different, or like, oh, look at me, like I'm gonna say something that you weren't expecting. Knausgaard's just being really transparent, but it's kind of at times pulls the other way, where his transparency just makes it opaque, and you're just left with these statements, and you're like, oh, okay. You might think that this is a sexually charged novel, or masturbatory in some way, if you will. But remember, Knausgaard is looking back when he was a teenager, when he was 16. And please have a think. I think most guys who were 16 are a little bit sexually, like, they're bisexually focused. You have to remember that Knausgaard's writing this from when he was a 16-year-old boy, and if there's anything I can go from, I was focused on a lot of things, and I watched some sites that I definitely learned very quickly how to clear the internet search history. And I think most boys who are in their adolescence would agree with me. I think it's quite normal for adolescent boys to be young, dumb, and full of cum, as a wise old man once said to me in a pub. That was a day. However, what's not normal and shouldn't be normalised is men and boys sexually assaulting and harassing, be that verbally or physically, women. That makes you a twat. Masturbate as much as you want. God, it feels really weird to say. Being sexually violent towards a woman is a crime. Masturbating as much as you want isn't. What's interesting from Knausgaard's perspective is that he doesn't really want to engage in dating someone or get it into a relationship. A girl rings him up and says, "You want to date me, don't you?" And he goes, no, not really. And she just puts the phone down on him and ignores him. That's kind of the end of it. When Knausgaard does end up dating, there's just this awkward teenage moment where both of them clearly understand what they've done, but don't really like each other. They liked each other for that night, but they don't really want to pursue anything more, and are just in this fervent, like, are we, aren't we sort of thing. This awkward moment, which is all part of growing up. But Knausgaard understands that there comes a point where there's growing up, and then it's just aging. And seeing his father cry towards the end of part one is where I think he realises that he's not growing up. He's just aging. He's reached where he's going to be, and he just has to continue living at this stage. And I think there's a really good reflection on this book as a whole. Part 1, as we see Knausgaard from 8 years old, growing into adulthood, Knausgaard writing as he's 8 years older than the age his father died, thinking back of, now I'm my father's age, now that I have kids, like, I understand why my dad was acting a certain way, or why he was saying certain things, or why, you know, he was doing something, but I didn't think it was in my best interest, but actually it was. Like, what is fatherhood, and who is a father figure, and yeah, what is fatherhood, or what should a father figure be? Again, Knausgaard's mum's pretty absent from this book. His father's the person teaching Knausgaard to grow up.
Oh, can I ask you a question while I hold this? Do you like me?
What's that?
Do you like me?
Yeah, of course
Am I
do.
okay?
I don't like you, I love you. There's a difference.
What's the difference?
Huh?
What's the difference?
Well, I could still love you, but not like you. Yeah. What daddy like? Huh?
Sure?
Sure, I'm sure.
Gosh. Look at that.
And in the second part, not where we grow up, where we age, this book stagnates. It is utterly boring. I know this is meant to be like the climax of his father's dead, and it's him trying to deal with the death, deal with his grief, deal with like the funeral planning and the directors and how much does it cost, and all the family come over, they're trying to figure out X, Y, and Z. Boring. I didn't want to read it. I did not want to read this. It was absolutely a slog. I know people write that he's meticulous with his scenes, but Knausgaard, what you have to understand is that he's not really writing a story, he's not really writing a memoir, he's really writing nothing. Like, nothing happens in this book. Things happen, but nothing happens. That's kind of like a Knausgaardian thing. It really will be up on page 481, where Knausgaard writes this. The first time I realised what I was writing really was something. Not just me wanted to be someone or pretended to be, was when I wrote a passage about Dad and started crying while I was writing. I had never done that before, never even been close. And I'm so glad, Knausgaard, that you decided to find your heart at page 481, a little bit over to 482. But let's not get into that. That's the end. I'm going to be completely honest now. If the next 5 books are anything like part 2 from my struggle, this is the worst decision I have ever made. I've renounced my decision to ever do book projects ever again, because this just... My frustration here, what I think is worthwhile me mentioning, is that the actual obvious criticisms of this book I don't really have an issue with. Knausgaard's open and honest, and whether you like it or not, he's going to tell you. Sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're a bit lackluster, sometimes they're really profound, sometimes they're just a bit boring. There's a constant fluctuation that is going on in this book in regards to his asides, in regards to his thoughts, in regards to how he's processing these moments. But actually what's going on is nothing. It's like looking into the abyss. You'll probably find something worthwhile. You'll find something that catches your eye, or you'll think you'll see something, but it's just vacuous. I feel as though I'm stuck in a really peculiar place, because I'm not sitting with the people going, this is amazing, this is an international phenomenon, like, I read this, it changed my life, wow, this was incredible, the guy's doing something different. But equally, I'm not sitting over with the other people going, I don't like this guy, I don't, Equally, I'm not on this side going, I don't like him, he's a really bad writer, I don't like what he's doing. It's just talking about nothing. I have really nothing to say about it. For me, this is a 4 out of 10. And I gotta read 5 more bloody books that are probably all exactly the same, all a bit boring. Oh. why. It has been 5 whole days since I sat down to review A Death in the Family by Karl Ove Knausgaard. And I'll be honest, I was deflated. I was in a bit of a... I had regrets about this whole project of mine. It didn't scratch any itch that I had, or it didn't give me an itch that I didn't know that I needed. So I went in pretty hesitantly into the second book, A Man in Love. If you want to know what it's like to be a parent, if you want to know what it's like to become a parent, because no one really teaches you that. The kid arrives and you're set out on your way out to the hospital and you go, what am I doing? I think most people who have become parents understand what that feeling is, but also when you become a parent, how people who don't have kids or people who are close to you treat you differently now that you have kids. I mean, A Man in Love ticks a lot of these boxes. Though Knausgaard is in Sweden as a single man, legally, on paper, he's still married and he has to deal with getting into relationships knowing that he's still married, knowing that he is on paper in love with someone, but has wanted to be in love, he's wanted to find love, he's wanted to invigorate love with Linda. Unlike the first novel where we're talking about fatherhood and death, we're talking here about love and to become a father. That's really what this is all geared up to tell. I have to say, upon reflection, the first book, A Death in the Family, Knausgaard's truthfulness comes across with angst, with defiance built into it. And I feel as though that has to play a part in that he's talking about his adolescence, him growing up. And I suppose there's some inherent vice to that. How this differs to book 2 of my struggle is that Knausgaard is an adult. And when he talks about things, I didn't feel angst. It feels shameful. This brute force style of prose that has epitomised Knausgaard's work has time to reflect. It has moments of regret within it, such as when Linda first rejects him and tells Knausgaard that she doesn't really want to go on a date with him. She quite likes his friend. He gets drunk, gets a shard of glass and starts cutting his face. And when he wakes up in the morning, he has to walk through the streets, has to get on public transport, and he knows that there are people talking about him and looking at him. But I feel as though in the first book it would have been a, yeah, I did it, what are you going to do? Like, there's like a confessional feel, as if it's cathartic. That it's cathartic in like the worst way possible. That Knausgaard is just able to tell you, he's there going, like, worst decision I've ever made. Any damage inflicted on your face is there for the world to see. It doesn't matter if you can or cannot rationalise it, if there's a why or why not. It's just like blatant to the world. Like, I cut myself multiple times. People used to like look at my arms and used to be comments and like, you can't describe the instant regret that kind of like sits in your stomach when someone notices, or when they pry into a question that even when you don't show, they know that they're there. That is absolutely horrific. And there's a lot of Knausgaard's depreciation of self in this as he becomes an adult, as he becomes a parent, that he can't look after himself in the same way that he has when he was single. He can't just get up and do something. He has to like focus everything around the kids. I'm not saying, and neither is Knausgaard, that the kids are to blame and they should pay a price for that. You just make sacrifices when you become a parent. You have to cut off certain things. If that means going to the gym, if that means eating better food, if that means even going to the shops, you have to cut your corners. This self-depreciation, I completely understand. When people say that Knausgaard like feels as though he's like lifted off the text, like, I get it with this. I used to be skinny back in the day. I used to be number one skinniest housemate. That's what I used to say. You know what? I used to have a lot of videos before I started doing book reviews, and I was a lot skinnier. Like, this is like back when I was in university, so this is like 10 years ago.
So if my boss is watching this, just tell me to go to the job centre.
Who wants the party? Caffeine, as we all know, is God's gift to us to say you don't need sleep. Where did I go wrong in the world? When I started posting, obviously people would go back and see the difference. And I used to get like a few comments over, oh my god, like your weight's a little bit different now, or like, oh god, you don't even look like the same person. And I have constantly struggled. Like, I absolutely like hate the way I am, like, most days. In regards to like what I used to look like, I liked that. I felt like comfortable. Like, now it's horrendous. Like, I hate it. I don't feel like comfortable. Like, there's been videos I've recorded, even though I'm like sat in like the same position here, like even just like the way that like I visualize myself, and I'm like, no, cut it. There's been loads of times like that, and I'm not here looking for any sympathy, because trust me, you could say like the loveliest thing about how I look, and I know I'm like this 16 stone fat boy who hates everything at this current moment. You know, it's really interesting. So when I started putting on weight, this isn't to do with like me having kids, because this was when I left university and I got like an office job, and I would just sit down, and I stopped doing like all my drama and theatrics, so I just moved to like this more sedentary lifestyle. Fuck it, let's go there. Right, so I got all these stretch marks here that probably don't even seem like that bad to people, but I hated them like with an absolute passion. But it was more logical to me to like cut them so as if they looked like scars, because I could deal with that more to the fact that I was putting on weight. Like, that to me was like I need to do something. I knew what I needed to do. I need to like go back to the gym, go back to my hobbies. But I moved into this corporate life of working from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. in regards to like commuting and going back and forth. Like, there was just no time, and I was sat at the desk and I was working away for commission, and that like ate into my soul and absolutely like made like the shell of a human that I like absolutely am. I love the people, I like the environment, I like the money, but I was miserable. I remember going to the doctors the first time because my cutting had gone from nothing to yes. And I just remember the doctor being like, quit your job, and just being like how can I quit my job? I was saying to her, I was like, so like, how do I pay for rent? How do I do this? And she just turned around and just went, that's up to me to decide. And I was like, oh. And then I did change jobs, and obviously my money crashed, and it was like the worst thing. Like, I felt so low. I just felt so low, because obviously my parents have like nothing. I didn't grow up like the best circumstances. Everything was like skint, everything was like scrounging. I got this job where I was able to, basically I became like a Patrick Bateman from American Psycho. So like my worth came from like my wealth, like from that point of view. I've just like not been able to like afford like a train ticket to work, because I take that much of a cut. Like, it was horrendous. And obviously with that my weight went and I've been miserable ever since. Let's get back to the book. You didn't know how awkward, how horrendous, how just like cringe-worthy kids' parties are until Knausgaard like reminds you how horrendous. Like no one wants to be there. Over like a certain age, no one wants to be there, and you're there for your kid, and his kids aren't even like enjoying this party at all. And there's this other kid, oh, this other kid who takes Knausgaard's keys and is kind of like, ha ha ha, like, you can't have them, like, come and get it. And he talks about, like, he's trying to play it cool of like, oh yeah, you got my keys, but there's like fire inside that is like, give me my damn keys and like, just leave me alone. And I appreciate that. And he talks about like is it bad to like hate this kid that he doesn't know? And I'm gonna be honest here. Yes, because there was this kid who used to live in our street. I hated him with a passion. Like every time I would see his face, I'd be like, get away from me. He used to be like so vile towards Dora, my eldest. It was like a joke. He'd just come up to her and be like, go and die. And he'd like kick her and push her. So like there came a moment where like in the neighborhood, anytime he'd come out, I'd have to like remove Dora because he was just horrendous. And the parents would be sat there going, ha ha, like, oh, boys will be boys, and oh, this is what kids do, isn't it? I remember looking at his dad in the face and being like, sort out your fucking kid. He bullies a girl who's 3 years younger than him. Like, tell him, get out. Actually, we were already out, so it's more like, well, get in. Luckily, they moved house. Knausgaard, as he's the writer, is like the stay-at-home dad while Linda's out. So he takes his kids to like baby club groups where like loads of mums predominantly go and like spend an hour just doing like sensory, doing some like songs, nursery rhymes, just kind of like get them like socially interacted. And I understand what it's like being a dad, taking your kid to one of those groups and feeling like I'm here for my kid, and you want me to do the hokey cokey every week, like, okay, I don't mind doing it. And you just got me like really awkwardly, like all these like mums like doing it or like giggling, like they all go for coffee afterwards. They're like really hip and cool, and it's me going, you're right arm in, your right arm out, in out, you shake it all about. Which was really fun the first time, but after like I paid 6 weeks for it, like the last time it's more just me like this. Do the hokey cokey. So I just do that now for the turnaround. Like, I'm not even here for it. All of them's like, hee, oh, Jessica, oh, did you watch that new BBC documentary? And there's me on the other side being like, I've watched it, but no one's asking me. Sometimes, if you're lucky, another dad will turn up, and you do have this moment where you clock each other, and you go, you just do this a lot. You just go, yeah, like, yeah, I'm here. I'm a hip, cool dad. Whoa, the hokey cokey. Whoa, the hokey cokey. I actually got told off in gymnastics for going on the trampoline. I was like, mate, I paid like 50 quid to go for 6 weeks. I'm going on your trampoline and I'm having a whale of a time. Maybe that's why the mums don't speak to me, I don't know. I just resonated with these parts. I didn't really resonate as much as when he first kisses Linda. He faints and everyone thinks that he's done drugs. I didn't relate to that. But just him talking about being a parent, or like where he shouts at his kid and he's like, why am I shouting at a 1-year-old? Because she doesn't know what she's doing. So like, why am I losing my rag over like this really tiny thing? Oh wait, it's because I'm like sleep deprived and I don't really know like how to deal with this child and what it's like to deal with a child in public when you're like, oh, it's okay, like let's keep walking and smile, like, oh, what my kids are like. There's only so much time you can play that part until like your child will just go, wow, and you go, oh my god, like, stop it. And that's just what it's like to be a parent, because it's not always that precise moment, it's not that little thing. It's just the fact that like you're knackered, you're tired, you're exhausted, you're trying to do other things, you're trying to juggle your relationship, you're trying to juggle your social life, you're trying to juggle like your work and like everything with that. You wouldn't change it for the world. Like, it's like having kids like the best thing ever. But sometimes you do just have to give yourself like a little bit of slack. And where Knausgaard doesn't give slack, which was really interesting, is him as a writer and writers in general. Within this modern times, it feels as though what Knausgaard is saying with his other authorly friends, is that they need like a lot of reassurance, like of what they're writing, what they're putting their effort into their production of work. Like, it has to be like constantly like, no, like you're really good. And even Knausgaard, like he won a really prestigious award for his first book, his debut, and he still needs like constant reassurance of Knausgaard, like you're really good. Like his friend says to him, like, how can you describe going to the toilet? And everyone's like, best description of going to the toilet ever. And on that point, Knausgaard writes 2 pages just on changing a baby nappy and the kid's just wriggling. And I felt that, especially when he says that his kid's wriggling and the foot touches the poo. And I just went, it's happened to me. It's happened to me. I was like, you need the contingency plan there. He talked about going to the shower, trying to wipe it all off and making sure like none of it goes everywhere. It's just me going, I've done that a few times. Like, I would do that. I asked my wife to read it and she was there just reading like stone faced. And I could tell when she got to the foot touches the poo and she went, yeah, Knausgaard does just describe very everyday moments. They're very normal. But I think because I can resonate with this more than my father dying, because my father's alive, meticulous, he does go into like a lot of depth. And if you don't resonate with what he says, at times you are a bit like, okay, like how long we got here, especially like the christening of his daughter. I was a bit like, okay, like when are we getting on to the next pages? I'd like to be able to tangent off and tell you a story, probably a prominent one when people talk about love, which is the moment me and my wife got engaged. Now, for most people, it is quite simply that you choose a ring and you propose and you become engaged. Not me. I don't like making things easy for myself, so I went the long way around this. Diamond rings are expensive. I don't think anyone's going to argue or doubt me on that. Alex and I were walking past a jeweller's one day in Cardiff city centre, and Alex stopped and was looking at one of the displays at the window, and something caught my eye, and it was something that screamed to me that now was the right time. Like, if I'm not going to propose now, I'm never going to do it. And I walked closer, and it was everything that I had wanted to see in this window. I want you to picture this. So in the pedestal, in the centre, there was this sapphire Diana cut ring. Surrounding it, moving down, were variations of it. But right at the bottom of this pedestal, to the left, like the utmost left, like it was just in the corner of the window. I'll never forget it. Job vacancy. And I thought, we're doing it. I was currently working night shifts in a call centre and was working 4 condensed days. So I had like a good amount of time off. The days I had off would predominantly be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I knew in regards to like a job interview, that's like the most likely it's going to be. And I've always had the gift of the gab. I left my job in recruitment for the call centre that we were recruiting for. And the only reason why I made that step was that the call centre allowed the freedom for me to do my masters. So I went in there and then spoke to the manager and was like, look, I see that you have this vacancy. I've previously been in sales. This is the reason why I've moved, but I'm looking to come back now that my studies were ending. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. Let me send you my CV. I'm free XYZ. Here's my telephone number. Wrote it down, passed it to her. Walked out, and I went, I know they're going to call me. Now, this particular jeweller's has a quick turnaround. I have seen that sign multiple times. It doesn't take much of a genius to realise if you have a quick turnover of stuff, it's currently in summer, which is like peak wedding time, and most times people are going off a holiday and proposing, that you need someone. And someone who has previous sales experience and has wanted to get back in sales, I knew I was going to get a phone call. And 3 days later, I get the phone call. I suit a boot, I go down there. Nevertheless, I get the interview and they put this ring in front of me and go, sell me the ring. And in my head, all I'm thinking of is, that's going to be the ring that I'm going to propose to Alex with. So I sit there, I talk about the cut, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, great, give her a day. And I was like, it's going to be less than a day. 3 hours later, I get the phone call saying, are you able to start? And I go, yes, but I have 2 questions. The first one was, is there a dress code? And the second one was, can you just go through the staff benefits again? Oh, it's 70% off your engagement rate and you only get that once. Brilliant. Hey, I'm actually going away this weekend. Is it possible if I could get the engagement ring now? Because I've actually seen one in your store. Oh, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, Province. I hope you've missed me. I got the certificate here. I got all the relevant documentation of a ring. And I got the ring. Actually, when I proposed was quite interesting. So I did mention that it was like the heat of summer. And Alex and I were commuting back and forth Cardiff, and the Valley trains are like really hot and sticky, even like on like the mildest of days. So stick it on like 5 p.m, like peak commuter time. We were both like drenched in sweat, like we all got like our work gear on. We're like, oh my god, this is horrendous. We get home, we kind of like go upstairs. I'm drenched in sweat, take off my clothes. I'm just in my pants now, like trying to cool down in the heat wave that it was during that time. And I get the ring out and I go, Alex, I did it. I I went to a job interview just to get a discount. And she went, I thought that was the case. Oh, God. I unplugged it when I plugged the lamp in. Oh, hey! Ooh. We'll go for that one. It's been 2 hours because my kids woke up and I can't remember exactly what we were talking about. Possibly about being a parent and having kids, but let's move away from that. Let's talk about the other person in this story, Linda. When Knausgaard first meets Linda, she's strong, she's independent, she knows exactly what she wants and wants to get it. Again, she told Knausgaard, I'm not interested in you, I want to be with your friend. So she clearly isn't afraid of speaking her feelings, but as Knausgaard and Linda become closer, as they actually get in and develop their relationship and move in, Knausgaard tells us in a lot of detail about Linda's mental state, and she advises him that she wanted to kill herself at one point, but she doesn't want to anymore. And when she says that, she looks at Knausgaard and goes, you don't believe me, do you? And he tells us that he doesn't believe her, that it's not going to happen again, and that it's not likely, but it's something that's going to be in his mind now that she has become honest with him. Now, obviously there's the moral stance, there's the ethical stance of, does Knausgaard have the right to broadcast to the world Linda's thoughts, feelings, mental states? I believe this is going to be discussed further and in more depth later on in the series. But it feels as though by doing this, Knausgaard, he doesn't explicitly state, but you can read into it, is that he appreciates Linda's ability to be transparent, to say exactly how she feels at that moment. And I suppose like the precursor to this series is Linda does a documentary. Karl Ove sits down to listen to it and says it doesn't really have a plot. It isn't exactly what he thought, but it's very honest. It's a bit of nothing. The documentary's compelling and he's unsure why he likes it because it doesn't really talk about anything specifically, but he likes that style. He likes what Linda has done. So clearly Linda has influenced Knausgaard in how he has approached his writing, how he has approached his art, how he's approached his style. And I feel as though that scene was put in to show that I'm not the genius behind this. It's Linda. It's everything that Linda has done has made me the writer that I am. Going back to how Knausgaard needs like validation. He knows it works. He knows it works. It's already been field tested to some degree, so why question it? The documentary and the novels are two very different mediums, but I suppose My Struggle is a kind of documentary. We keep going back to this, that it's a novelized memoir. What exactly does that mean? I suppose it's more documentary-esque. Honestly, I've not really worked this out in my own head. There's the obvious answer that it's a novelized memoir, but I feel as though there's something different here. I don't think he's reinvented the wheel. I don't think he's created something completely fresh, but he's definitely added oil to the axle. Tangent off that, what could be seen as abrasive and corrosive is their relationship. There are a lot of highs, there are a lot of lows, there's a lot of miscommunication, there's a lot of just no communication between them, and trying to juggle Knausgaard's life, his writing, his deadlines, and also the fact that Knausgaard, once Vanya, their eldest, was born, he decides that he needs like an hour to himself. Like at some point he needs to just leave the kids, he needs to go and do his thing on his own time. Alinda has a resentment for that because she doesn't stop being a mother for an hour, so why should he? And Knausgaard's like, but if she wants it, she can have it. I just specifically asked for that, and you were happy with it. There's a clear marker to now that he's become a parent. He has to almost leave his past life. Like everything that he has done is now filtered through people's eyes of, yeah, but now you're a responsible person. Now you're an adult. You have kids. You have a responsibility. And Knausgaard's like, no, I'm the same person. I just have kids. Working out what fatherhood means is done in the present. It's at this moment in time, now that this kid has arrived, now that I have to take it home and we're going to look after this kid, I'm a father now, what am I going to do? What seemed counterintuitive to me is that the first book ends with Karl looking on his father's face now that he's dead. There's not really a mention, there's not really a continuation at all. Like, you could read this as a complete standalone. His dad doesn't really come up in this story, apart from at the end where Karl's mum, who's pretty absent from this. Karl Ove definitely gives the impression that his mum didn't raise him. It was his father who was there, and Karl's now the stay-at-home dad. He feels as though there's some connection, but that connection isn't made within this book. It's very much, I'm a father, this is what I'm going to do. He doesn't need to look back. But when his mum enters, she does go back and talks about how life was an adventure with his father, and she starts crying and says, I loved him. And he says it's like the rare time that he's like heard that she loved him, and it kind of just leaves it on that tone. So I'm unsure if the next novel, Boyhood Island, if it's going to continue from this, where we're going to go. I would highly recommend this book. It definitely is a 180 compared to Death in the Family, but A Man in Love I would give an 8 out of 10. Look at that! We got high hopes. We got high hopes moving forward. It's been 2 days since I finished the second volume of My Struggle, A Man in Love, and now we are going to talk about Boyhood Island. Now, you might think, Kieran, you've kind of ruined the aesthetic here, but sometimes when you don't have enough money to buy books, you do this. You do this contingency plan. Rocked up to the library. I'm now halfway through A Man in Love. Let's pick up the rest of these books and use the local library, people. Isn't that right, Dora? Exactly. You know I always like rant about my library, but Pod to Clean Library, guys, come through. Guys, absolutely come through. Let's pick up some Knausgaard. And we got the books. Now, if you've been watching this series from the beginning, you will know that I've had one question on my mind, which is, where does Knausgaard's mum fall into this narrative? Why is she absent? Why is she like a fleeting figure throughout A Death in the Family and A Man in Love? At Boyhood Island, we kind of get the answer, because Boyhood Island is before A Man in Love and before A Death in the Family. Chronologically, we are going back in time as early as 18 years old. Yes, Knausgaard gives a narrative where he's 18 months. So obviously in regards to this novelized memoir, he doesn't know that this exists. He didn't know that this happened. So there's some leniency given. We spend very little time with baby Knausgaard up a mountain. Where we spend all of this book is in his childhood, when his family moved to Sørland. If, like me, you know nothing about Norway and you couldn't really point to Oslo on the map, but luckily in the back of this hardcover they have a little map of where Knausgaard was. And what I love is that there's a place called Hove. How fun! There's a place in Britain called Hove, and I don't really know my geography of England very well, so it's either going to be really rough or really nice. Britain doesn't really teeter on the in-between, but let's have a look what Hove looks like. Oh, well done, Hove. Well done, Hove. You're a nice area. I'm glad it's called Hove, not Hull. Oh, Hull. Who would want to live in Hull? An estate, to be precise. And we see Knausgaard interacted with the boys who are outside, who are constantly there playing. And we also see Knausgaard and Ingvar, his brothers, dynamic, because there's only a few years difference between them, but those few years make great boundaries when you're this age. The difference between an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old is remarkably different from, say, someone who's 19 to 21, where the difference almost feels a little bit... This age dynamic isn't contained just to the household. It's actually pushed into the estate, and as Knausgaard's friends are growing up and he trundles along beside them, or as he moves up and the younger people trundle along beside him, we have these interesting dynamics. And yes, growing up, sexuality comes into this and what it is to have sex. And I think one thing about Boyhood Island is the sexual encounters, such as when Knausgaard sticks his penis in a bottle and it gets stuck, at times feel a little bit jarring. These scenes always have a voyeuristic element to it, and you're a little bit uneasy about viewing what Knausgaard talks about and what he depicts and what he recollects. But I think what's more so, unlike the other books, and I'm fully aware this is because we're dealing at this particular age, there is an immaturity to it. There is an element of like, oh, why did you do that? Like, you're so naive. For this to be a realistic text, it has to be somewhat realistic, and that it does. Boys exploring themselves is nothing new. We have this juxtaposition between Knausgaard understanding his feelings and how to explore those feelings versus his domestic life. Knausgaard's father is a tyrant, verbally abused, physically abused, mocked constantly. One scene, though, I will say, Boyhood Island feels more episodic than anything else, so maybe I should say one episode, but nevertheless, Knausgaard visits his grandmother as she offers him an apple, and he eats the apple. And Knausgaard's father comes home the next day with a sack of apples, and he passes him one, and Knausgaard eats the apple. And the father puts another one in front of him and goes, eat that one. Knausgaard goes, well, no, I'm full, like, one was enough. And Knausgaard's dad is like, well, how could you eat 2 yesterday? Like, you're going to continue eating these apples because you're greedy. If you could do it yesterday, you can do it now. And there's this ridiculing. There's a lot of ridiculing. There's a bit where Knausgaard's father buys him sweets and he physically pushes Knausgaard's face into the table and says, you're going to eat this. It's sad, it's upsetting, and you'd understand why it would make a boy cry, but Knausgaard cries all the way through this. There are very few moments where we actually find happiness in Knausgaard. Cries at everything. Again, he's ridiculed, he's mocked for being overly sensitive, and sometimes he tries to gain a thick skin. He tries to be resilient, and it almost like perpetuates to his downfall. So he knows he's the smartest in the class. He knows that, and he states it to another child and makes that one cry. The family turn to him and go like, why are you being like horrid? He's like, but it's true. Like, I'm smarter than this kid. Like, I have the best grades. Like, why is it wrong to say that? Like, why is being truthful wrong? And they turn to him and be like, you should, like, not do that. That is definitely something to think about and explore. I think this moment where Knausgaard understands his intelligence kind of seeps from A Man in Love, where he's constantly needed reassurance. There's something that he needs to be praised that he's doing it, because he's not being praised at all. It is constant criticism. It's as though his intellect and his ability to soak up information is just normal. So you shouldn't be praised, you shouldn't have like a well done, because it's kind of just, that's just Knausgaard. Knausgaard understands that his family won't give it to him, and he expects it from his peers. And it's so cringeworthy in like the best way possible. They have to choose like a top student, and all the students have to vote on who they want to give the accolade. And Knausgaard has the lowest votes. He has 1. And that 1 vote is from Knausgaard himself, and he's confronted by his classmates going, well, we know you voted for yourself because no one else will. And you just see Knausgaard be like, it's not me, like, someone's lying, like, why would I do that? Like, I know who I voted for, and how he's trying to, like, dig his way out of this situation. Yeah, it's one of the lowest moments of the book, because that's when you realise that no one's going to stand up for Knausgaard. No one's going to do anything for him. And you think all of these moments that he'd pick himself up, but he's constantly being pushed down to the floor, even through something that like isn't his fault. So he has to go to a swimming class because his father's trying to teach him how to swim, but is basically just shouting at him, just swim. But his mum signs up to go to swimming lessons, but he needs a swim cap, and his mum forgets on the day, rushes into town, buys the only one available, and it's got like flowers on it. It's a very girly shower cap. And Knausgaard, like, being a young child where you're so, you need other people to confirm to you. You're so aware what other people will think, is sitting in the car being like, we need to find another one. Like, there's no way I can go to this class wearing this swim cap. Because he knows he's going to get ridiculed. And guess what? He gets absolutely ridiculed. You see the mum sitting there, like, at the end of it, like, really upset, because she's like, I tried really hard and I promised him. And it costs a lot. Like, Knausgaard's family do not have a lot of money. So for them to put him into this class is like a big deal. And you see her just sat there being like, I tried my hardest. I let him down. Knausgaard's mum is definitely the opposite of what I was expecting. Like, the reason why she's not in this. Knausgaard's father he's abusive, but the mum is lovely. The mum, like, really tries with Knausgaard. She's a very motherly figure. She's loving, she's caring, but the family do split. But it's not given away as that they're divorced. They just sit down and says, your mum's changing names and now she's not going to be there during family gatherings. And Knausgaard says, like, are you getting divorced? And both parents just turn around and go, no, your mum's just changing her name. And from that moment onwards, absent. It's as if she is literally just cut there and then. Against the rest of this book, that cut is severe, because this is a small town. It's small, it's rural, there's only a few number of people, and you see the same names repeated over and over and over again. So it's very stark when the mum stops appearing. But again, we have this small town mentality where everyone knows everything. Anything that you do is like spreads like wildfire. And thinking of fire, we have a moment where Knausgaard has a box of matches with his friend, and they try lighting. Oh gosh, there's a wasp. Sorry about that. Let's just continue on before it tries to attack me again. Knausgaard has a box of matches, and him and his friend try to light a fire, and there's this element of like, what's going to happen? Like, we can control this. Like, we can put it out if we have to. And you see these two kids who seem to have no control in their lives. They can't control anything. They've managed to tame something that could destroy the town. And this sense of relief, this sense of ecstasy, this high, this rush, it trickles. It trickles, it ends very soon when Knausgaard gets home and he has to deal with his father. But there's that small moment in him where he feels as though he did the right thing and that he's doing the right thing. I want to segue into something that is relevant, I promise, about this act of setting fire. In this small place that Knausgaard lives, there's a talk about setting fire to the surroundings. Now, I'm from the Rhondda Valley. This is actually like where I grew up. This place right here, I'll stick an arrow on it if I can, like right there, like that's pretty much where I spent 14 years of my living days. It happens more frequently than anyone would like, but people set fire to the mountainside. In recent years, a mountain fire got so bad that it kind of swept, rather than going up like it normally does, actually swept down into the valley. And a place like Eshley, which was like 2 towns over from where I lived, was like nearly caught on fire. Like people's houses were like really on the precipice of like being engulfed in flames. But there's something clearly wrong about it, but there's something clearly inviting. There's something about the act of setting fire to something and seeing it get out of control that clearly captivates enough people, because it's not the same people over and over again. And I was stupid. I used to live on the back of the mountain in Treorchy, and I remember me and 2 of my mates went up, but one of them had stolen like cooking matches. They're really long and it's a safety precaution, so when you strike the match, there's enough gap between the lit end and your fingers, so when you put it into the gas stove, that catches flame and your fingers are safe. We go up the mountain, we pass all the ferns, we go past Rainbow Rock, and there's like a little dry patch of grass. And my mate's there now trying to light this grass on fire. I remember feeling like a little bit uncomfortable, thinking like, well, if this goes wrong, I know what people think when people do this. And I'm there going like, like, what do I say? But being young enough, it's naughty enough that there's a bit of me going like, yeah, like, what if we do it? And it starts kind of smouldering and it takes off in some way. And we try to douse it off. Interestingly, we tried to stifle the fire with blue Powerade, but I don't know what's in Powerade, but it made it worse. In this like moment of like panic and realization, it was just 3 of us just like stomping on this grass, like trying to like figure out like how we actually control it. And luckily we did. What was left was a scorch mark about yay big, just left there and then. And I remember just all of us like looking at each other, and then like this nervous giggle of like technically we've done it. Like we've done it. Like, we have set fire to the mountain. We controlled it. And there was this almost, I don't know what the word would be, like this pact that we weren't going to tell people that we've done it, but like we knew that we had done it. Like that was enough of an experience for us to understand what it was like. And since then, I remember years later where I was about maybe 15, it was like 10 o'clock at night, just teenagers. They got nothing to do. we're all broke, parents don't have money, so we're just kind of like languishing in a park. Just languishing, just like enjoying our company. One of the boys who was there was my mate back then in the mountain days. Now, I kind of lost track with a few people because I was sent to a different school. The reason why I went to a different school is that the local school in Treorchy, my mum didn't really want me going there because my sister who went there didn't go there because she used to bunk all the time. She would just come home and stay home. Now, there's a 17-year gap between me and my sister, so I basically was raised an only child, but it was enough for my mum to definitely consider sending me elsewhere, to the point where the school that I went to, I had to take an hour bus, so there was no way that I was ever going to bunk off school. Like, I had to be there, so I naturally lost contact with people who I grew up in primary school, people who I used to play with on the street when all of them were walking to school with each other. They were making new friends. They were continuing on the friendship and relationships they had in primary school. I had to walk in the other direction past people and stand at a bus stop at 7:30 in the morning to get to school by 9. So I naturally lost contact with people. But this one night, there was a new girl who had joined the school, and I was invited with a few people to come out just to hang. Like, we really didn't do anything. Like, looking back, and I see teenagers like around where I live just like stood outside, and I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like, there's nothing to do around here. Anyway, she's a smoker, but she sticks 2 cigarettes in her mouth, and she gets her lighter, lights them both, moves one over to the other side, kind of purses it there, takes the other lit one, goes over to an overflowing bin, and just like stabs it onto this napkin. And this whole bin like catches, and it's crazy. And me and my mate, like, we all kind of like scarper going like, why the hell, like, did you just do that? And she's like, it's funny. And me and him, we kind of like, we break off, we're both walking home. We get to the corner by the Stag pub in Treorchy, and he's going to turn left and I'm going to turn right. And he goes, do you know what, like, this reminds me, like, I know that fire is probably contained, like nothing's going to happen. No one's really going to know. Fear of getting caught reminds me of what we did up the mountain. I don't remember what my response was, but that moment, that like one day, like we used to go up the mountain all the time, that's like a really particular day for me. And I think that was the last time I ever went up there. That's like the one thing that has stood out in my mind, and everything else has kind of become non-existent. I don't really remember going up there. I remember going up there, I just don't remember anything about going up there. Maybe there's something in that of a moment that lasted 20 seconds. There's many things that I've done and said when I was younger that I'm not particularly proud of, but I wouldn't say that I'm like ashamed of them. I think when you're young, like, the attitude that you have is very much like akin to water off a duck's back. You don't really feel any resistance. Things happen one day and the next it's as if nothing really happened. It's only when you become an adult that you feel the pressure of the words. You notice the consequences of your actions. I think people are easier to judge, to cut off ties, to burn bridges. At times it's a detriment because it completely clouds your vision on circumstances, on people. I think maybe we just need to be a bit more forgiving, a bit more lenient with circumstances. I know I've lost friends just because they've said one thing that I didn't agree on, or they've done something that I didn't like, and I've completely severed them. Why? Like, why did I like give up on one instance? I feel as though I have a lot of networks, but I don't have a lot of connections. And sometimes I wish I could say sorry, or I wish I could turn around and go, like, I was in the wrong, or I didn't understand, or I didn't listen. But even now, I feel as though it's too long in the tooth. And for me to reconnect, for me to maybe message them, like, it would feel weird. It would feel weird, but I wouldn't have felt that conscious about when my friend said that he was glad my sister died of cancer so she wouldn't have to meet me. I remember it took the summer holiday, and I remember knocking his door being like, hey, do you want to play out in the street? Both of us were like, yeah, like, oh, like, how you been? Oh, yeah, like, a bit bored, just kind of sat around doing nothing. Like pick it up like that. The substance that holds Boyhood Island together is relationships. Now, throughout this, I've used friendships and relationships interchangeably. Boyhood Island deals with Knausgaard's relationships. In the latter part, within the former, it's his parents. His parents who he believes love each other, and that when you're married, like, that's it. Like, you love each other. You've reached the stage that everyone wants to get to. And how could it possibly fall apart? Like, how could it end? And that's where it is. Knausgaard's father moves back into singledom. Knausgaard's mum moves back to singledom. And it leaves Knausgaard with a pondering of what does it mean to love someone? What do these feelings, what does it mean? Like, what does it mean? Like, what does it mean? And this is where I had this silly idea.
Hi Alex, how are you doing?
I'm okay, thanks.
How long have you been married for?
A year and a half.
We forgot our own anniversary, didn't we, our first one?
Yeah.
We did, completely forgot. We had a message from my dad, wasn't it? And then your parents. We were like, okay, that's cool. And then we were like, oh yeah, we got married. How long have we been together for? Don't worry, Alex. Don't let the film run out.
I was thinking, actually. I think it might be 7 years.
About 7 years. Was that your first ever love?
Yeah.
Thank you, Alexandra. Who was the first person you ever fancied? Like in school, not like a celebrity. Like,
I was going to say it was Handy Andy from Changing Rooms.
do you remember the person from school? You don't have to name names.
I went to a girls' school. So no.
I mean, it could have been the yes.
But it wasn't.
The first person you ever fancied, you don't remember who they were?
I think... No.
No.
No, I don't think so.
Oh.
Maybe. I don't know if it's the first.
Take that person who you vaguely might have liked.
Okay.
Would you ever contact them, say, 11 years down the line?
No.
It'd be a bit weird, wouldn't it? Do I brave and say, hey, 11 years ago, this is what I thought about you? Or was that, like, a subject a bit too, like, close to broach?
I mean, this is you, so I don't think it would be as weird as if a normal person did it.
I'm trying to
I'd be a bit freaked out. I'm flattered, I suppose.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be worse to contact someone and be like, hey, in case you didn't know, you were my mortal enemy. Like I've plotted your death or something. I think that would be worse.
That would be worse than being like, hey, bit weird.
But what if they say, oh yeah, I fancied you too?
I'm going to have to
What
keep them keen and treat them mean, Alex. That's what I'm going to have to do. Ghost.
Oh, I can give you some tips.
How do you feel about Knausgaard?
Well, you seem to be enjoying him. He's keeping you occupied, so you can stay.
He can stay. I'm just trying to be, like, as honest as he is, and I feel as though I want to, like, replicate, like, not just the experience of Knausgaard, but, like, what it is to be like, as brutally honest with people, even though it's, like, a little bit weird. Like,
Be honest with me if you want.
I can be honest with you?
Yeah?
Well, what would you like to know? I'll be honest right now.
Anything you haven't been honest about before? I don't
Oh, gosh.
Like the real reason you don't like eating cake? Or...
Oh, hang on now. You know why I don't like eating cake.
I still don't really understand it, but...
That's what you want me to be honest about. You want me to be honest about why I don't like some cake? Why I don't like eating some cake? That's... Okay, no, we're gonna broach it. So when I was... Hello. When I was... I don't know why, because the logic is I was like 8 and I'm a bit...
We've all been in that circumstance, and you get like the little giggles and like the red cheeks. I remember in primary school, I really liked this girl who was sat like on the next table, and I had constantly like told my friends like, oh, maybe, because we used to have like table changes. Oh, I was like 7, this is so cute to think about, but I feel like really like, ugh. I said that maybe I would sit next to her. Oh, Kira, what are you doing? Why are you saying this? And I remember my friend had written her name, oh, in like big bold, like we all had like textbooks, and I'd opened it up and he had just written her name, black felt, like all the way through, and it kind of like seeped through to the front with a purple crayon. I don't know why he had crayon and felt. Like, I've never been in a circumstance where I've had both, but he had drawn like a purple love heart around. I remember opening it and this feeling of like the world should take me right now and just swallow me up. And I'll always remember that it was that moment she turned to me. So I'm sat here, there's like a girl, and then she's sat there. So there's wee young Kieran, here's a picture of what I used to look like, just like sweating, like frantically trying to figure out like what I can do so she doesn't notice. And there's me trying to like solve the circumstance that's like, it's not really that big of a big deal. I probably could have just gone, I finished my textbook and I have a new one. And Mrs. Davis would probably just turned around and gone, yeah, okay, here you go. But there was just this moment of like sheer panic. And I want to replicate that. For some reason, I really liked this girl in school, and I never told her until now, 11 years on. To give you some context, the last time I properly spoke to this girl was in 2012. Now, I had been in university and had changed schools, so I have not seen this girl or have been in like the same room or have physically spoken to her, like where we can see each other, since 2009. One thing that I have learned from this is that if anyone comes across as cocky and arrogant and you want to knock them down a peg, tell them to open up Facebook Messenger, find their like first proper crush from school, and just tell them. Just tell them. I sweated for 40 minutes on what was pretty much 6 sentences. And me to press enter and for it to send, I felt that absolute dread of, oh no, what have I done? It's absolutely nerve-wracking, and it puts you like in the space of a teenager. I can't quite describe how it feels, but try it now. Just don't even press send. Just try to tell someone that you used to like them back in school, and I pictured like everything for when I was like 13, like vividly. I've been left on red, however, and do you know who else left me on red? Longestine Jambalaya. I sent this email. Longestine Jambalaya, if you are watching, you're part of this now. You've become part of the Knausgaardian lore. And there's something poetic about that, I feel. I mentioned that I read this in 2 days, and compared to the other two books, this one's more simplistic. You're very much in the same place, you meet the same names. Again, there's a lot of nothing that is happening. But I suppose when you are a child, there is a cyclical nature. You're kind of determined by school, the holidays, the breaks, your family. There's not much exploration that can be done. You kind of do the same things over and over and over again. And in his house, the same situations repeat over and over and over again. In school, he does the same things over and over and over again. His friends are constantly outside. He constantly plays the same games. He has to go to the same shop to pick up the same things. There's that element of nothingness that makes sense in a way. Very easy, but although I appreciate the nuggets that fills the gaps in any of these, at some point it feels a bit blasé, and like we've covered this in very similar fashions. You're just feeding me information. It's kind of as almost as though he's eking out these threads that I was aware of. So for me, it's a 5 out of 10. What's interesting and what I'm starting to understand is that I think these can be read as standalones, but I would not recommend starting with Boyhood Island. I think you kind of need to understand where the gaps are here to understand why it's being spoken about here in that fashion. But I wouldn't rush out and grab this. It has been 6 days since I finished Boyhood Island. It took me 2 days to finish, and now I could be a gun for hire, even if we're just dancing in the dark. The 4th volume of my struggle, Dance in the Dark by Knausgaard. I was so eager. I'd rattled through Boyhood Island, and I had my issues with it. I had my qualms. I didn't really know why he's still writing. How on earth do I still have 1,500 pages? What else can Knausgaard give me? But I rattled through, so I thought, I can get this. I can get through this. Now, in the last video, you saw that I went to the library, but they were missing 2 books, this being one of them. So I went out and bought it. One thing we should get out of the way is that these new vintage edition covers are way better than the old one. Like, what is it? It is what it is. And when I finished it, I would like to shout out to the library, because they did manage to send me the next copy of the same ugly edition. I was really hoping that it would be a different cover, because it's horrendous. But now we've got Knausgaard twice. Knausgaard squared, if you will. Let's have a quick summary of what's happened before, because the timeline jumps around quite often. First book, we deal with Knausgaard growing with his father, and then jumping forward when his father dies, and Knausgaard dealing with that. In the second book, we jump to where Knausgaard leaves his first wife and falls in love with his second wife, Linda. The third book, we jump further back in time, where we first meet 18-month-old Knausgaard, but now we're really dealing with like pre-teen Knausgaard into teen Knausgaard. Now we have Knausgaard fully formed, but not really. We've jumped forward in time, but not too much. He's 19. You might think, boy, we're jumping around. This book is the epitome of, boy, are we jumping around, because we are going left, right and centre in Knausgaard's life. 19-year-old Knausgaard wants to be a writer. Let's not have the one with a shiny cover. That's going to irritate everyone. And he wants to write. That's all he wants to. Oh my gosh, darn it. He just wants to.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Where was I? Oh yes, right at the beginning of my sentence. Knausgaard wants to write. He wants to sit down and write his first novel. He's going to start off with some short stories maybe, just to get into the swing of it. That's all he wants to do, and predominantly he wants to be good at writing. And he says if he's not good, if he doesn't make a name for himself, if he's not successful through writing, he should just top himself. With that cheery notion aside, we're going to go to a small fishing town in the north of Norway, in Hafjord, where Knausgaard picks up a job as a unqualified teacher because he needs money. He needs money. And that's the only reason why he's picked up this job, is so he has enough money to sustain himself, and when he's not working, he's going to be writing. I myself, when I finished my masters, went off to do the PGCE, which is a qualification to teach, and I went into schools doing secondary school English and was subsequently kicked off the course. Yeah, that was an interesting time. I actually did a video like as soon as I got kicked off the course because I was fuming. I'll put a clip here.
It's like a green screen, so basically what happened is that I decided to follow my dream. From a young age I wanted to become a teacher. A lot of people who've watched the videos know that there's books everywhere. I'm quite an avid reader. I enjoy the analytical side, the processing. I also do poetry, if some of you may know that. And I've done some writing. Actually, I think in the vlogs I actually discussed when I was writing my first novel. Still hasn't been published. Hey ho. However, I decided to take the plunge. I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to go into teaching. It's not to say that I didn't want to do secondary teaching. I actually did want to do secondary teaching. And the PGCE is the Postgraduate Certificate in Education over here in Wales, and that's the qualification you need to get to become a teacher. You could do QTS, but I just decided to do the PGCE.
He's passionate about writing, but all the other subjects that he has to teach, he's not interested in. He's also petrified that he has to teach students English, and he knows that his English is not the best. Fully aware that he's going to be called out on it, and not by the teachers, by the students. And they do. Before we move on, I want to look at this from a different point of view. Predominantly, this side, where it states, all goes well to begin, but as the nights grow longer, his life takes a darker turn. Drinking causes him blackouts, his repeated attempts at losing his virginity end in humiliation, and to his great distress, he develops romantic feelings towards one of his 13-year-old students. Right, okay. Yes. Knausgaard wants to write, but he has two vices that are holding him back. The first one being alcohol. He passes out midway through the day of his father's marriage to his stepmom, Uni. Like, he gets drunk a lot of times in this. And the second one are girls, where as a 19-year-old with insecurities but equally bashful, thinks he knows it all but doesn't really have any life experience, wants to be the man but equally still a boy and doesn't really know what he's doing in life. He fumbles around wanting to lose his virginity. He fumbles around girls. He has plans in his head of, okay, I think if I do this, if I'm speaking with this girl, that she'll like me, and should I invite her into my house? Should I invite her upstairs? What if my housemates are in? Like, how do I deal with this situation? And he has so much going on up here that the girls who seem to like him are almost waiting for him to invite it. He's so caught up in the logistics, the banalities, and the details that he doesn't do anything. And these girls just aren't interested. Now at this point you might go, Kieran, hang on, didn't you just mention like something about a 13-year-old girl? Yes, like the most transgressive thing in this book is that he develops romantic feelings towards one of the 13-year-old students, which does happen for all of like 5 pages. Nothing happens, it's just him fantasizing about these situations, which predominantly left him to write a book, which I assume is his first book. And in a strange turn of events, the girl who he's fantasizing about and her friend who he taught ring him up during the launch and say, like, can we come down? Like, we read the book. And Knausgaard has to kind of go, yeah, well, like, it wasn't you I was thinking of. And the girls kind of go, yeah, like, you know. This kind of brought something up in me that I've been curious about this entire series so far, which is, what is fiction? What is auto-fiction? Like, what separates that from non-fiction? And what makes it memoir? What makes it autofiction? Is this all fictional? Is Knausgaard portraying a character of himself? Is he leaning into not like caricature, but just slightly eeping into character? I still don't really know about what Knausgaard. Is he fabricated some things? I think it's truthful. I think Karl Ove Knausgaard did fantasize, and he wrote this in order to be transparent, in order to understand his mindset, his state, and how that he's at this cusp of adult and child, that he's in this in between, and what makes it right, what doesn't make it right. It's a bit of a head scratcher because I think it's truthful, but I don't know if it's honest. Ambiguity and this voyeuristic aspect of like really peeling off Knausgaard's head and jumping in and just getting into all the dirty spaces in there. That's what's compelling about these books. There's a want to go, why are you telling me this? I don't know, like if he had written it out of the book, would that change his mindset? The difficulty here is that we could actually have a lot of conversation about this, but in a 500-page book, this is a small slither. Like, this isn't Lolita, this isn't My Dark Vanessa, it's not talking really about that. It's really a few pages within a tome. If the book doesn't revolve around that aspect of it, what is it revolving around? And you have two main things. First of all is one that I've mentioned, childhood and adulthood.
First of all, the first thing I want to say is that I should never have gone to the course. I think it was about 5 of us actually who turned up on the day. I turned up in a suit, I was quite confident, and we had been told by the course leader to prepare an advertisement on why you want to be an English teacher. Me being me, just decided to go, I'll just wing it on the day, not realise that the 4 other girls had actually prepared something. And I was just like, oh, yes, I've done an advert, and just, I don't know what I was talking about. I managed to get onto the course. I'll take it. I will take it.
Up until this moment, Knausgaard has been looked after by his parents or his parent after they have divorced. He's never had to think about financially keeping himself stable. He's not had to venture out into the world, into the unknown, and do all the petty mundane things that adults do on a day-to-day basis that when you're a kid you don't really think about, like pay the bills and who's going to cook your food and how do you deal with people in your house that you live with, like your housemate. There's a freedom that's been unleashed. And I remember when I went to university and I had my student loan and I was working and I could just do what I want as long as I turned up to my lectures, which really weren't a necessity. I know people who didn't turn up for pretty much half of the term. I didn't have to go. If I wanted to just go to a pub all day and spend all my money, if I wanted to go to a restaurant or order takeaways and just burn a hole in my wallet, I could. No one was going to stop me. No one was going to tell me I couldn't do it. If I wanted to get into a really bad relationship, well, hey, it's on me. No one's there holding my hand being like, Kieran, think about this. You don't have that. Knausgaard's dealing with that. When he's teaching, that's exacerbated. He's 19. He's teaching kids who are 2 years younger than him. Really, there's not much difference between him and them, but he has this superiority just in age, even though he has no superior knowledge in what he's teaching them. And in fact, some of the kids know more than him.
I was kind of like this in a classroom scenario. I very much don't feel comfortable behind a camera for the most of the time. However, being in front of a student, 30 students who are all like 14, staring at you blissfully at your every single word, waiting to find some truth in the world, and then you realise you have no idea what synthesis is. What is synthesis? Who is John Steinbeck? What is the world made of? Is an Oxford comma acceptable? I don't know. Issue arises when I went to my second placement. How do I describe a school without saying it? The school is centred around a heifer surrounded by cocks. And look, they published that. All the kids wear that, so I'm not saying where they're coming from, but it was a cow surrounded by cocks on a bridge. That's all I'm saying. You'll be able to figure it out if you know what I'm talking about, or if you spoke to me about this situation. But on my second day, I got told by my mentor that I actually would fail. No one who's gone into this school for English ever passes. They never pass. They never succeed. They will fail, or you'll quit. Brilliant. Imagine going to a job interview, getting the job, and then being told, hey, where do you want to be in 5 years? Oh, you know, I'd really like to go. Because you'll quit. You'll quit or we'll fire you. No one ever makes it to 5 years. That didn't put me in the best of places. So the next day I got called into the office by the headmistress to be told I was being escorted off the building. And I had to speak to my university. I spoke to the university and was basically told by my course leader, I do not care if she sees this, but basically withdraw and quit the course. Hadn't been told what I had done yet. What I had done was write a poem from 4 years ago that had been published. That is it. And this, I have racked my head around this so many times in order to understand. Now remember, I wrote this about 4 or 3 years ago. I'm not entirely sure. I should check, but I do not care at this point. I was at university. We were told by our lecturers, you know, get out there, do the things you want to do. If you want to write, get your writings out there. So I wasn't writing for kids. I was writing for adults. I'm interested in what I'm interested, what I have gone through in life, and what I want to tell people.
When he's not teaching, he goes to his mum's house and divulges how tyrannical living with his dad is, and she doesn't know about that. Everything that was discussed in Boyhood Island has seemed to go amiss to Knausgaard's mum. She didn't know that Knausgaard was treated in that way. She didn't know that Ingvar, Knausgaard's brother, took the brunt of the father's force. She doesn't know that. When he visits his dad, we are seeing his slow intoxication with alcohol, but equally we're seeing him find love through Uni. The parallel here is that as Knausgaard is starting his new life, as is his father is starting a new relationship, a new love life, a new family. Let's stay with the father a bit more, because we are going to shoot forward after the father's dead. And Knausgaard finds diary entries, he finds scrapbooks, he finds writings of his father that document his day, how he felt, how much he drank. And Knausgaard doesn't really know why he details his own drinking. No one knew about these scraps until after he had died. Who he had met is also documented, and just snippets through the day. For those who have watched this series, The My Struggle and My Struggle, from the beginning, this might ring a bell. In every single book so far, someone is documenting something mundane, truthfully, honestly, transparently. And Knausgaard is drawn to this type of writing. All of them are the inspirations and really the precursors to what this book series is. This is Knausgaard dealing with the mundane, with the boring, trying to tell it as truthfully as he possibly can. Scraps, scrolls, diary entries all document a moment in time. They all document a mind state. They all document a person. They are that person at that given time, on that given day, how they felt, their true reflections there.
If you want to write, do it. As teachers, and I'm meant to stand in front and say, look, this is what this poet's doing, this is what this author's doing, but I'm not allowed to do that. That doesn't sit right with me. Sadly, one headmistress's decision has ruined my career as a teacher. And where do I go on from this? I don't know. I'm pretty much going to go back into what I was previously doing, which was just in an office. Yes, I will be able to carry on my works. Yes, I will be able to do a YouTube. But is that really what I wanted to do? No.
Knausgaard is not adverse to documenting things in painstaking detail. Within this book, we have a very lengthy session of him making coffee. That went on for a few pages. Even in A Man in Love, we have a 50-page party scene that just keeps going. Besides Knausgaard's coffee routine in work, we also have pages of him teaching in class, trying to engage with students he's never seen before. We see him having dinner with his family, and he has to explain to his grandmother that the money she had given him to split with his brother, that he has just simply forgot. We have Knausgaard dealing with the mental turmoil of asking his grandmother, remember that you said you were going to give me some apples before pages. Out of all the books so far, Dancing in the Dark flits. We got flashbacks, we got flash forwards, we are all over the place. Now, you get to the 310-ish page. I wasn't ready for it. I've only experienced something like this once, and it was Kierkegaard's Either Or, where we just switch attention and talk about Don Juan for 200 pages. I was not prepared for Knausgaard's 200-page flashback of something that I did not care about. Now I just want to summarise something here. How Knausgaard looks on this cover is how I felt reading this book.
Things happen in life and you can't do anything about it. You feel in a really bad point, but you'll be able to discuss that. You'll be able to move on from that. You'll be able to discuss in years to come why those things happened. You'll be able to look back on hindsight, look at the situation you were in and be able to unpick it, but in the moment you will feel as though you're drowning in something you can't get away from. I definitely feel like that in this moment. And I don't have a career. I don't have a job. Actually, I don't have a job because I'm unemployed. I will keep writing. And hopefully soon I will be able to find a way in order to teach. What that is, I do not know, but in some way, shape or form I will be able to teach.
Painstaking. It is mundane. I know that's what he writes about, and that's his prose, but there is nothing in here that I even cared about. Not even that Knausgaard has quite a good music sense, and he's a teenager. Of course he likes music. Growing up at this time, David Bowie, Simple Minds, Talking Heads, the greats. He's even lucky enough to have a job for a newspaper, writing columns about music, like everything that I think most teenagers who absolutely adore music would love to do. Aside from music, he's reading all the time. But Knausgaard tells you right at the beginning, the books that he reads, the books that he is drawn to are the ones where it's people dealing in boring situations and having to make something great of it, like Jack Kerouac's On the Road. Who am I to argue? If that's what Knausgaard wants, I mean, this is the book series. He wanted to be a great author. He's an international phenomenon. I suppose you have to give him a clap because he's done what he set out to do. But guess what? I don't care. Zadie Smith, during this part of the publication, said that she needed this book like crack. Like, this is literary crack. Do you know the issue with that is? Is that people who are on crack won't admit that it's bad. This was absolute drivel. I slogged my ass through this book. Now, I'm not one of these people who go, oh guys, this book was amazing. It was 700 pages and I read it in 24 hours. Wow, it was really good because it was so quick to read. Like, I think you can have, like, really good books that take a really long time to read. This is just really crap. I felt every damn page of this book. And you know how Knausgaard wants to lose his virginity? Oh boy, do we get it right at the end. We have the most anticlimactic climax. I don't even want to look at this book. I hate it. I hate the cover. I hate the prose. I hate the story. I hate that I got a 200-page flashback that I didn't even care or wanted. I didn't even need it. I didn't even need it. I don't care. I understand about his father. I understand about his mother. I understand about him because I've read 3 of the books. And I tell you now, I can see the other 2 books continuing on. And I know everything by now, Knausgaard. Everything that you're saying isn't interesting. I know it. There's nothing more that you can tell me. There's nothing more that you can tell me. After reading this book, I have like 1,500 pages to go, and I have no idea like what you need to tell me. Like, why isn't this ending? Why hasn't it ended? It's kind of like, do you know when you're in a funeral and you have that like distant like uncle who like you never really know from like your mother's side, and he's just like, oh, remember back in the day, and just like spools at you, and you're like, I don't even like, you've covered this. Like, you've covered this. Why are we still talking about, why am I in a room with you? Like, at the time you're thinking you're doing like a really good deed, and then they just keep like wanging on at you, and you're like, oh my god, I realise why everyone has like avoided you, and why no one speaks about you. Like, no one speaks about this book. No one speaks about this book. It's because it's rubbish. It's because it's rubbish, people. Because you don't need to read it. Because I learned nothing. I've learned nothing. I've learned nothing. I've learned that David Bowie and Talking Heads are good artists. And I knew that. I think most people knew that. Come on, Overdrive. Whoop whoop. We're going to the Testaments Club. It's a 2. It's a 2 out of 10. It's a 2 out of 10. I have 2 more books to read. I got a family. I've given up, like, my life for this. Why? Why? Good evening, campers. I've just come out of the shower because I had a call from the library saying that these books need to go back. They're a little bit overdue, and it's been like 2 weeks, but I read Some Rain Must Fall. I don't really know what else to say about this series. It's all the same. It's just all the same thing. We're dealing with another relationship in a bit of depth, focus more on the brothers' relationships, and Ingvar goes to Bergen and Knausgaard follows. Ingvar has friends, Knausgaard doesn't. He gets involved in a friendship group. Knausgaard likes a girl, introduces her to Ingvar. Ingvar and the girl get together. Knausgaard is sad, and basically all these books just told like in a little bit of a different way, or told from a different perspective. I don't really know what to say about this book. I mean, it does start off in the most sadistic way possible. Let me read you. The 14 years I lived in Bergen from 1988 to 2002 are long gone. No traces of them are left other than the incidents a few people might remember. A flash of recollection here, a flash of recollection there, and of course whatever exists in my own memory of that time. But there is surprisingly little. All that is left of the 1,000 days I spent in that small, narrow-streeted, rain-shimmering Vestland town is a few events and a lot of sentiments I kept in a diary which I have since burned. I mean, he can't remember anything, and he wrote over 600 pages of it. And what is he writing about? It's pretty much him writing about how he doesn't write. More focused on alcohol and girls, of which this series has already covered in great depth. We do follow his fortunes and misfortunes of being in Bergen's prestigious writing academy, of which John Fosse is one of his lecturers. And Knausgaard's writing isn't great. They tell him, you're too focused on the little stuff. You'd write about yourself too much. Oh gosh, God, give it 30 years. You wouldn't know what would happen. The baby's crying. I don't really care about this series. Let's just call it a 1 because it's pretty consistent with the other books, but the library told me that I gotta give them back. Saying that, I have extended and renewed The End, which apparently is over 1,000 pages of Knausgaard. Yay, woohoo, wow, can't believe it, wow, what a lucky boy I am, woo. Good evening, campers, it's me, Kieran. I thought we would take it back to the beginning because I've now finished The End by Knausgaard. After reading over 3,000 pages, all 6 books. I have now finished the My Struggle series. Let's have a look at some highlights. Let's go. I go to Cardiff Waterstones and I go to the fiction section. It's all alphabetical by last name. I go to K and oh no, it's not there. There's a visible gap of where this would be. Your boy had only rung up the day before and asked him to reserve it. Woo! Like me?
Yeah, of course
Am I okay?
I don't like you, I love you. There's a difference.
What's the difference?
Huh?
What's the difference?
Well, I can still love you, but not like you.
I used to be skinny back in the day.
Who wants the party? Caffeine, as we all know, is God's gift to us to say you don't need sleep. Where did I go wrong in the world?
More logical to me to like cut them so as if they looked like scars, because I could deal with that more to the fact that I was putting on weight. So this wee young Kieran, here's a picture of what I used to look like, just like sweating, like frantically trying to figure out like what I can do so she doesn't notice, and there's me trying to like solve the circumstance.
What that is, I do not know, but in some way, shape or form I will be able to teach.
Painstaking. It is mundane. I slogged my ass through this book. Now, I'm not one of these people who go, oh guys, this book was amazing. It was 700 pages and I read it in 24 hours. Wow, it was really good because it was so quick to read. Knausgaard's writing isn't great. They tell him, you're too focused on the little stuff. You write about yourself too much. Oh gosh, God, give it 30 years. I have extended and renewed The End, which apparently is over 1,000 pages of Knausgaard. Yay, woohoo, wow, can't believe it, wow, what a lucky boy I am. Yes, The End brings us to the end of My Struggle, which thus ends the My Struggle with My Struggle series. And this all happened because Rebecca from Rebecca Eats Books thought it would be quite funny as a title, and I thought I would make it into a series. And here is a message from Rebecca Eats Books & Co.
Hey Kieran, I heard you read all of My Struggle. You did it. You read them all. I'm so sorry.
Right, let's stop messing around. That's way louder than I thought it was going to be. The End begins at the publication of the first book, Death in the Family, where Knausgaard has received some attention for his work and his blissfully truthful account of his father dying, him going through the funeral, reflecting on their relationship, reflecting on both of them growing up as parent and child, going through the funeral, going through mourning, going through the procedures that you need to do once someone has died, and dealing with the legalities and the bureaucracies that come with someone dying as everything moves possession into your hands. And furthermore, what makes a Knausgaard book is reflecting on the mundane, reflecting on the mediocre, reflecting on the quotidian life that most people know. Most people, and I'm assuming yourself, know what it's like to make a cup of coffee in the morning. You know what it's like to engage in mundane small talk. You know what it's like to have gripes and sweat out the small stuff. That's what Knausgaard has done throughout the majority of this series. But what he has maintained, what he has pertained, what he persists is that he's telling the truth. So far within this series, it's all about being truthful. It's about stripping everything back, almost to a confessional state. Indulgent but equally reveling in shameful moments, things that you don't actually want people to know about yourself. But in order to get to the truth, he has to expose those moments. He has to get to the bone of it. He has to make sure that he's telling it truthfully, because otherwise it's just fiction. So what happens within the 1,000-page tome, The End? Well, someone doesn't think Knausgaard is telling the truth. Someone doesn't think that what happened in the first book happened in that way. introducing Knausgaard's uncle Gunnar, who says that he has hyperbolized, saying that he has fictionalized the account in order to make the story more desirable, therefore more sellable, therefore more profitable. Knausgaard, upon hearing it, starts to doubt his being. He starts to question, well, has he been telling the truth? Well, he thought things happened that way. Well, what if they didn't? Does that negate this series? Does it nullify this project? Whose truth does he have to tell? Is it what he feels, or is it the objective truth? And within the end, this is where the key to unlocking all of this comes into. Now, I've said throughout this series, I'm not sure what the purpose of this is. I understand what he's doing and why he's doing it, and why he's taken on this very elaborate style of dealing with the nitty-gritty and the minor details, but I've never understood the key. Why has he done this? And this book answers that question. But before Knausgaard can talk and deal with that, he has to live his life. See him with his children, cooking them food, putting on their favourite TV programme like he does every other day. Going through the rigmarole of one of your children not wanting to make the food that you have made them, even though the fish cakes are utterly delicious and that they have eaten it many times before. Dealing with the animosity that comes to the bedtime routine that they do every single night at the exact same time, that the kids should just know this routine. And why can't they seem to understand that when it hits this time, you go to bed? This is what we always do. Knausgaard really does drive home the repetition of his life, and that he's not anyone extraordinary. He's not anyone living a life of Riley. He's just an ordinary man dealing with his kids who are ordinary, until the first book is published, until people start looking at him differently. People start giving him a status. People start seeing him as someone who has a voice. Maybe he's the voice of the people. Maybe he's the conduit for people to finally get things off their chest, to relate to someone in life that they can't find, because people don't want to be truthful about this situation. People want to pretend that everything's okay. Knausgaard allows a catharsis, yet Knausgaard doesn't feel he is this type of person. He's someone who goes to the supermarket to buy food for a dinner party and struggles to find the type of wine that he wants. He's the person that when he says to people he's a writer, they go, okay, wherever. It's only within this certain circle that he has prominence. It's within this train of thought that Knausgaard begins to reflect upon what other authors have done. How have they dealt with grief? How have they dealt with the death of the parent? That's what started this entire project off. This is where he decided to tell the truth. And one of the authors that he mentions is the controversial Peter Handke and his novel Sorrow Beyond Dreams, where Handke within 80 pages talks about his mum who committed suicide and how he honestly feels a distance between himself and his mother. Yet Handke's staunch distancing that he pertains changes once the proxemics change. Once he sees his mother laid out, dead before she gets buried, then something changes in him. Humorously, Knausgaard does jest towards this point that what Handke is able to do within 80 pages, it's taken him over 3,000 pages. Humorously, Knausgaard does jest towards the idea that what Handke is able to achieve in 80 pages, it looks like he's going to take over 2,000 pages. At least the guy was honest, eh? Knausgaard also has said many times that Handke is the most prominent European writer. But within the end, we also talk about someone else who is a prominent writer, someone who truthfully, by talking about what people felt, about what people wanted to say, but they couldn't, someone who was able to be that conduit of truth, someone who had a platform, someone that could be the voice of the everyman, someone who, if they weren't the person that they were, the little book that they had written would be in a library somewhere. And some obscure scholars, a few students might have stumbled across it. That the book itself doesn't have any meaning, it doesn't have any value until you assign it to the person. And this is where Knausgaard moves not efficiently, not effectively, but just goes on a 400-page essay about the life of Adolf Hitler and how there are some parallels between Adolf Hitler and Knausgaard. And by Jove, it bloody works. I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting that at all. But you understand what Knausgaard is trying to say. He's not trying to justify what Hitler had done, but that Hitler purported to tell the truth. People believed in what he said because they thought it was true. But Hitler was an opportunist. He was conniving. He was able to play on people's emotions. That's how Hitler got into the position that he was, and has Knausgaard by purporting to tell the truth, but in some way misconstrued it, that he got it wrong, until we find out that it was a false accusation, that the uncle had got it wrong. And Knausgaard here, he wants to end it. He wants to end this project. He realizes that by telling the truth to the extent that he is, he's almost divulging too much. He wants to go back to supporting his family. He wants to have the little moments where he uses an apple and speaks Appleish to his children. It feels easier said than done. Even towards the end of the end, Knausgaard divulges information about Linda's hospitalization due to her mental health, how she constantly falls down and picks herself back up, almost giving Knausgaard a means to go, do I need to tell any of this information? And Knausgaard in the background seems to be saying, I'm only writing this because I know my reader wants to read it. I'm being as truthful and as honest because it's expected from the audience. They want to see how much Knausgaard can say, how much is he willing to spill, how much is he willing to step over the line for the audience that he's amassed due to being that honest. Which one is he doing more? Is he telling his truth or the truth that the audience wants? The audience that they want to participate in. It's these aspects that have made him controversial whilst equally making him lauded. And what's interesting is that Knausgaard has reflected that he was more truthful towards the beginning of the series than he is moving into the latter part, because he had fallen into, well, I need to talk about these things because that's what the reader expects now, and I'm more than happy to tell you this honestly. I'm willing to give you my truth. I'm willing to subjugate my children and wife to this because of you, dear reader. This meta-narration within the end really does solidify what he has done. The end is a metafiction and almost a auto-commentary on auto-fiction is really the seal upon the other 5 books. They're the justification, they are the reasoning, they are the clarification. And yet to end it upon this book feels equally the right thing to do, but voyeuristically, there's a bit of you that wants it to keep going. Despite the fact that I haven't enjoyed this series from beginning to the end, there's a bit of you thinking, what else could he talk about? This is a strong book with a strong end, and is it worth reading all 2,500 pages before it just for this? I think it is, and I'd give it a 7 out of 10. Now I could say bye, I could do that, but we've started at the beginning here. We've spoken to Rebecca, who started this off. But there's one other person that, if you followed this series, that we spoke to. And I reached out to them and wondered if they could spare some final words. This is the email I sent to Longestine Jambalaya. Enjoy this email.
It has been a tumultuous time, but I have neared the end of Knausgaard's entire series. I have a request. So I have reviewed and documented my time with my struggle and created the following playlist on YouTube. I mentioned that I emailed Vintage and you have become Longestine Jambalaya. Now an integral part to the series, the foundation of Knausgaard lore, and, most importantly, a beloved anonymous hero to those who have watched. It would be fitted, I feel, if you have some final words to tie this series up. You didn't know you were a part of this, but I couldn't have asked for a better Longestine Jambalaya. You go, Longestine Jambalaya.
Today it's the 10th of January 2022. I sent that email on the 4th of October. I don't think I'm getting an answer back. And now my struggle with my struggle has ended.